of equal pay from 1915 to 1920, and it was absolutely fascinating. It's archived on the Alumni Association's Facebook page. So if you missed that live session yesterday, please be sure to check that out. So today we have a virtual memorabilia exhibit. So typically during homecoming and reunion weekend, Archives always does a memorabilia display. And if you're a reunioning class, you can come back and they pull out memorabilia from your time at Winthrop. And we're going to do a little makeshift of that today and have a virtual memorabilia display of some really amazing things that Archives has from Winthrop's history. So we have Gina Price-White, who's the Director of Archives, class of 1983, and Brittany Pigford, who is an archivist in class of 1999. So Brittany and Gina, thank you so much for your time today. Y'all have questions for Brittany and Gina, y'all can drop them in the chat and we'll get those to Brittany and Gina so they can answer. And with that, ladies, take it away. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lori. Again, I'm Gina Price-White, and I'm the Director of Archives and Special Collections here at the Louise Pettis Archives at Winthrop University. I am class of 1983, and this is Brittany Pigford, who is an archivist here. She is our photograph archivist, and she is class of 1999. The Winthrop Archives was started in 1962, and it was primarily to collect and preserve the history of Winthrop. But since then, we've added a lot of things to help boost curriculum here on campus and to preserve the history of this area. We have family papers. We collect things relating to women's history. We have a medieval manuscript collection. We have some cuneiform tablets. So we have a little bit of everything. But today we're going to show you some of our treasures from the Winthrop Memorabilia collection. We'll get started, okay. Brittany.
Well, welcome everyone. Well, Gina, this looks like a photograph of the little chapel, but these look like some nails. Can you tell us more about these?
Yes, the little chapel was the first classroom for Winthrop. It was when Winthrop started in Columbia in 1886. It was the chapel on the Columbia Theological Seminary, and D.B. Johnson was able to secure it for 1 year while the seminary was closed. And though they used it for that first year, it was one teacher, 19 students when they started on November 15, 1886. And so in 1936, the Winthrop Alumni Association, during the Great Depression, raised enough money to buy the building and have it taken apart. They numbered everything and then brought it to Winthrop's campus here in Rock Hill and put it back together where we see it today. The nails are actually from the 1820. The building was originally a carriage house. It was built in 1820. And so these are some of the original 1820 nails from the building. They were, when they were taken out, they were kind of bent, so they couldn't use them for anything. So we have those as a tribute to the first classroom.
Well, the little chapel is my favorite building on campus. If you've never been to it, I highly recommend it. Well, it looks like we have a great table set up over here. Let's see what we have, Gina. Okay, these appear to be some kind of glasses. Can you tell me about those?
Yes, those are D.B. Johnson, the founder and first president of Winthrop. They are his pince-nez, and a pince-nez are eyeglasses that don't have arms, so they don't sit on your ears. They sit on the bridge of your nose, and those were his that he used. An interesting story about those. They were in a box that was from the president's office, and we had taken everything out, thought we had taken everything out, and as we were putting the box away, these fell out. They had been beneath one of the flaps of the box, so it was amazing that we got those before we actually threw away the box.
Well, you never know what you're going to find in the archives. Well, next we have a photograph, and I recognize D.B. Johnson in this photograph, but can you tell me who else is in here?
Yes, this is the student body in about 1890, 1891. The on the left, top left, is D.B. Johnson. Well, he's the only male in the picture. He was posed there with his teachers, Mary Hall Leonard, who was the first teacher, and I believe that is Mrs. McCants, who was the art teacher. And then the rest of the people in the picture are the student body. And we also have the, that's outside of the Marion Street house, which was the second home of Winthrop. And Winthrop was there from 1887 until we moved to Rock Hill in 1895.
Okay, and here we have a photograph of D.B. Johnson.
Yes, this is D.B. Johnson about the time that, between 1886 and 1895, while he was president, first named president of Winthrop. The chair he is sitting in still exists. It's in the alumni office. It has turned back there, so it's a pretty distinctive chair. But that was him about the time early in the history of Winthrop.
Okay, next we have some kind of seal. What is this, Gina?
This is the seal of Winthrop. The middle part is the seal of South Carolina. The outside is a belt that says Winthrop College is the South Carolina College for Women. And Winthrop's had a number of names over the years. It was first called Winthrop Training School for Teachers. Then it was South Carolina Industrial and Winthrop Normal College. Then when we moved to Rock Hill, the name was changed to Winthrop Normal and Industrial College. And then in 1920, this seal and the name Winthrop College, the South Carolina College for Women, was in existence. Now, that lasted until we went co-ed in 1974, and then it was just the Winthrop College. And then in 1992, we became Winthrop University.
All right. Well, who is this lovely lady, Gina?
That is Mrs. D.D. Johnson. Her name was May Rutledge Smith Johnson, and she was married to the founder and first president, D.D. Johnson. She entered Winthrop in 1896 and took a 2-year business course and graduated in 1898. She became a stenographer in the president's office and worked there, and they married in 1902. This photograph is actually her wedding photograph.
All right, so for some of our younger viewers, this is a typewriter, and I've heard a rumor about this typewriter that involves Mrs. Johnson. Can you tell us about that, Gina?
Yes, as a stenographer, Mrs. Johnson would go in, when she was Miss Smith, would go in to the president's office and take down a letter. He would dictate a letter and she would write it down, and then she would come back and type it on a typewriter, probably this typewriter, because this typewriter is from the time period, from about 1895 to 1900. And so I'm sure she used this typewriter. But the story has it that she went in to take dictation from President Johnson one day, and he dictated his proposal of marriage to her. Now, she neither confirmed it or denied it, so that kind of makes me think it might be true.
Well, if you ever want to hear more from Mrs. Johnson, go to our website and go to Digital Comments, and you can hear her oral interview there. All right, Gina, let's see what we have over here.
We do have a question.
Oh, we have a question. Come on, Abby.
Why did Winthrop move to Rock Hill from Columbia?
Columbia, they were in a house. First they were in the chapel, and then they were in a house. And the house was small. And so the student body started getting bigger. So they formed a committee about 1890, 1891 to find a new home for Winthrop. Well, Columbia had their chance. They put out for bids from different communities, and the best bid came from Rock Hill. They had narrowed it down to a few different places, but Rock Hill came with the best bid, and that's why they chose Rock Hill to move to.
And we're so glad that they did. Well, let's see what we have over here, Gina. This appears to be a photograph of a dorm room.
Yes, that is a typical dormitory room about the turn of the century. We think this one is in McLaurin, which was known as South then. You can see all the trappings of a student there. And we have several different photographs of dorm rooms. This one's really interesting, pretty easy to see, so that's why we chose this one.
And this is a bowl?
This is a wash bowl. It was a wash bowl that you could, that students would use to wash their faces. It usually came with a pitcher. We do not have the pitcher, but this was the bowl, and you can see it says Winthrop College there at the top. And interesting story about this bowl is the gentleman who brought it to us told us that his mother had gotten it from Winthrop. She was a Winthrop graduate and had worked at Winthrop, and they were getting rid of it, so she took it. He always thought it was some sort of punch bowl or something like that. And we took his word for it. And then we found a photograph that had one in it. So this was a washbowl that they used in their rooms.
Wonderful. We do have one more question.
Okay.
Can you come into the archives to take a closer look at these objects?
Yes, we are open. Right now, it's by appointment until for further notice. So we're open by appointment, but we're usually open for appointments between 9 and 4. So you can just give us, and it's Monday through Friday. But you can just give us a call or send us an email, and we'll be glad to set up an appointment. We'll get out everything and show you whatever you want to see.
All right. Well, take me out to the ball game, Gina. It looks like our next table is all about athletics.
Yes.
All right, Gina, like, I know we said athletics, but this looks like some kind of uniform, but it sure doesn't look like an athletic uniform. Can you tell me about it?
Yes, this is a basketball uniform from 1905. It was worn by a lady who was in the class of 1907, and her class, when she was a sophomore, her class won the championship of basketball championship of the school. Now this time, Winthrop students did not play other schools. They played. Each class had their own team, and the classes played each other. So this is a navy blue wool uniform. Actually, I think it's black. But it's wool, very kind of itchy. We do have a photograph of the lady whose uniform this is. She's in the top left. And that this is the actual uniform here, and she has it on in that photograph. The lady's great-granddaughter actually brought us the uniform when she entered Winthrop a few years back.
And what is this building? I don't recognize it as being on campus anymore.
Well, it's not. It was torn down in 2010, I think. That's Peabody Gymnasium. It was the gymnasium. It was built about 1915, 1916. And it was where all the physical education and athletic things took place for many years.
All right, well, over here I see we have somebody throwing a shot put, but I'm not quite sure this is a shot put. Can you tell me about this?
No, that is a duck pin ball. And duck pin was a form of bowling. It had a smaller ball with no holes and smaller pins. And Winthrop had a duck pin alley in Peabody for many years. And that's kind of the size of a shot put, but a shot put I think would be smaller. We do have a photograph of the duck pin alley. That's Professor Alan Edwards, who was a sociology professor here for many years. That's him bowling in the duck pin alley. And we have several other photographs of it as well.
Well, it looks like somebody won a trophy. What is this for?
That was the class trophy for field hockey. Again, each class had their own team. So the field hockey team, whoever would win the championship, would get their class on the trophy, and then the field hockey stick we have here later. It was the trophy was from the teens till 1919. So that's probably from the 1960s, 1970s, but they didn't change a lot, the sticks didn't.
All right. Well, who is this lady right here throwing a shot put?
That is Lucille Ludi Godbold. She is our claim to fame for Olympic history. She was in the 1922 International Women's Track Meet. Women were not allowed to participate in the Olympics at that time. So this was the Women's Olympics. And so she won 4 gold medals and 2 others. She went on to teach at Columbia College for many years, but she was a very interesting lady. She was the first woman in the South Carolina Athletic Hall of Fame.
And this is a great book that was written by her, by Miss Jean Patrick, who came to the archives and did a lot of research to write this book. Well, next we have an item that my loudmouth definitely doesn't need. Can you tell us about this?
This is a megaphone. Thank you. A megaphone from the early 1980s. Winthrop had a formal cheerleading team, starting in the late 70s when the athletic team started playing other schools. And this is from the early 80s. David McCown, who's class of 1984, graciously let us have his megaphone for the Archives Memorabilia collection. He says it's very taped up because they used it, they would beat it on the floor of the gym to make a lot of noise, and they had to kind of put it back together every time they used it.
All right, well, it looks like we have a beautiful uniform over here. Let's see what we got.
Also, we do have one question
question.
before we move on. This is pertaining to the previous setup about the wash bowl.
Yeah.
Somebody would like to know, does the bowl require any special preservation practices?
No, it's actually ceramic, so we keep it in our environmentally controlled area, and so it's as long as we don't drop it, we try to keep it wrapped up so it's protected that way. But in our environmentally controlled area, then it stays pretty good.
All right, great. Well, Gina, this looks like a uniform, and I know the Winthrop girls wore uniforms. Can you tell us a little bit about this?
Yes, this is a uniform that is a reproduction of 1900 uniform. We did not have any examples of the early uniforms. And a few years back, a graduate student who was very interested in historic clothing agreed, her name is Allison Bolton, and she agreed to reproduce about 5 different uniforms from around the turn of the century so that we could have examples of those. It's made out of navy blue wool. The uniform was the skirt and the jacket. Allison made up the patterns because we couldn't find any patterns. The Winthrop girls could wear the whatever shirt that they shirtwaist that they had, as long as it was mostly white. It could have a pattern to it, and then they had the little tie here. The students wore these uniforms. They usually changed them every year or every couple of years at this time. Here's a photograph of some of the Winthrop students about 1899, 1900 wearing the uniforms, and it's very similar to the one that Allison recreated for us.
All right, and this appears to be some kind of board. Can you tell us about this, Gina?
This is what's known as a sleeve board, and a sleeve board was used for the mega mutton sleeves, the kind of poof sleeves that were popular at that time. And it was used to either make the sleeves or press the sleeves, so that would go up into the larger part would go up into the top. And this was made by Patty Major, who was class of 1913. She made that in dressmaking class, and so that she could use this to make outfits. We also have a sewing book, also Patty Major's sewing book. Every student had to take sewing at this time, and so we have a notebook where they would create stitches and different techniques for sewing, and put them in the notebook so they could use them for reference later on. So we have a couple of these notebooks, and they have absolutely beautiful stitches. They're hard to see on camera because they did it on the white muslin so that they could see with the red thread, so that they could see what the stitches were like.
Well, I'm sure glad that we didn't have to do that when I was a student, Gina.
Me too.
All right, well, it's near lunchtime, and our next table is making me hungry. Let's go see what we have, Gina. All right, it looks like we have some utensils here.
Yes. The utensils here are from the dining hall. They have Winthrop College on the handles of them. It's engraved with that, and they were used in the dining hall. We also have a jelly spoon over here that has Winthrop Daughters engraved on it. I had never seen a jelly spoon before, but I think that looks like you can get jelly out of a jar really great. The dining hall was not a cafeteria, it was a dining hall. And so we have a picture here of some students in part of the dining hall. But the dining hall is what we know of as McBride now, and it wasn't called the McBride until the early 1960s. It was named after Sarah McBride, who was a dietitian. But the food was served family style, which means they would bring a big bowl of food to the table. Everybody was assigned a table, and then they would help themselves to the food that were in the bowls. And then they would also, there was usually a hostess of the table. They would do it for about a week, and it was a student who would be in charge of the table and make sure everybody's milk glasses and water glasses were filled, and everybody had everything they needed.
Would these be the plates that they would eat on, Gina?
Yes, this is a Syracuse plate. We have a cup and saucer, salad plate, a dessert bowl, a soup bowl, and a dinner plate. And we have a number of examples of these. But it was a very pretty pattern. It's gold and garnet, so it's Winthrop colors. And this was used for many years in the dining hall. And I'm surprised that we have as many as we do have in the collection.
And this looks like a ladle?
Yes, the ladle was probably used for receptions. It's engraved Winthrop College on the handle. It may have been used in the president's house. We're not sure exactly where it was used, but you know, whenever they had punch, I'm sure they used ladles like this or used this ladle.
Well, this next set looks a little bit nicer than my Keurig at home. Can you tell us about this, Gina?
This is a silver service set that was given by one of the early 1960s classes as a class gift. Because the date on the silver is, I think it's 1963, but that was when it was manufactured. So I'm not, if anybody knows which class gave this, we've been trying to do research to find out who gave this, but there's also a tray with it, but it's a coffee pot, a teapot, and cream and sugar, and a tray.
Sure is beautiful. Well, it's beginning to look a lot like Christmas at our next set. Let's see what we got. All right, Gina, this looks like a beautiful Christmas tree in front of the fountain. Can you tell us about this?
Yes, this is the tree that's by the fountain. It's a magnolia tree. And in the 1930s, Leonard Colt, who was the head of facilities at the time, decided that Winthrop really needed a Christmas tree. So that beautiful magnolia tree he decided would be the perfect tree, since it was so near the fountain and it was right in front of main building. And so he created an apparatus to go around the bottom of the tree and up at the top so that the lights could be hung going up and down rather than trying to be wrapped around the tree. And so that they started that in about 1938, I think, and it's still decorated today.
All right, and these don't look like light bulbs we see now. Can you tell us a little bit about these?
Those are light bulbs from the tree. A few years back, they decided to do LED lighting, and so these are the incandescent bulbs that were used for years. We have one of each color and to represent what used to be on the tree in our memorabilia collection. So the LED lights, I guess, are much more efficient and are brighter, but the lights that you see on this picture over here are the incandescent lights.
All right.
We did have a question. It's pertaining to the last exhibit we had. Did the food from the dining hall come from the Winthrop farm?
Yes, until the farm closed in the 50s. They shut the farm down then, but that's the reason they had the Winthrop farm, is to help feed the students. Any surplus that they had, they would sell it to community members outside of. And one thing that we've always heard from alumni is the ice cream was delicious. We have a number of photographs of the farm and where they were milking cows, and then the ice cream machine where they made ice cream. So yeah, ice cream seems to have been the good thing from the farm.
And also with the tree, be sure to tune in to the Alumni Association Facebook page on December 4th at 6 p.m. for the virtual tree lighting ceremony. All right, well, from Christmas to crowns, let's see what we have going on our next table. Gina, it looks like they're having some kind of ceremony in these photographs. Can you tell us about them?
Yes, the first Saturday in every May, Winthrop would have May Day, and the students would elect May Queen from the senior class, and then a maid of honor, and 4 members from each class, which would be the May Court. The picture Abby has right there is Jean Carruthers, who's class of 1949. She is with Henry Sims, President Henry Sims, and she was wearing the crown Brittany has on now. That was the first crown from probably the 1930s, and they used it all the way up to the early 50s. The May Day started in 1929, and the last one was in 1971. After the the 30s crown ceased to be used, they used the one Brittany has on now. That was a pearl crown, and they used that from the late 50s all the way through 1971.
Well, Gina, it looks like in this picture there's a lot of people there. Was it just Winthrop that came to May Day, or?
No, they invited people from all over the state. Of course, they invited the board of trustees, people in the community would come, and there was a big program that was put on. They had skits, they had music, they had speeches, and of course, a bunch of programs. At the May Day ceremonies, and they just ceased to use May Day in the early 70s because they were going to go co-ed. So they thought that was something they needed to get away from.
All right. Well, our next set is going to make me hungry again. It looks like we have some plates, but I'm not sure these are the type of plates you eat off of. Gina, can you tell us a little bit about these?
Yes, they're not plates that you eat off of. They are commemorative plates, and we have had a number of the Alumni Association has done a number of plates from commemorative plates over the years to offer for sale to raise money. They have we have different colors and different scenes on each one. Some of the plates that we have one of the Tillman Tower, main building tower, clock tower. We have and it's a pinkish color. They've done different colors. We have one of the Roddy Hall.
And what's this fountain in there?
Roddy Hall of courtyard, and the fountain there that you see in the picture is the original fountain that was in front of the main building. It was made out of metal, and when they replaced it, they put it over to in front or in the Roddy courtyard. But we have that one that's blue. We have a gate picture of the front gate, the Winthrop front gates that are that one's green, and then we also have a blue one here. But there's several other scenes on different plates, and we have probably 6 or 8 different plates for that.
We do have a question. Are these plates available for purchase?
No, they are no longer available for purchase. I don't think they're any longer being produced, but I know a number of people have told me that they've seen them for sale on eBay. So if you really want one, you might look on eBay and see if you can find one.
We have a question that just popped in.
Okay.
It's, do either of you have a favorite piece of your winter collection?
Of the Winthrop collection?
A winter collection, yeah.
Steve?
I love our class registers. They're books that have every student that ever attended Winthrop written in there. What years do they go from, Gina?
1895 to 1950.
I love them because I think about one person writing every single girl's name and information in those books, and I just think they're a great part of our history. How about you, Gina?
My favorite things are the uniforms, because it's just amazing to me that we still have uniforms that we do actually have a uniform that's a graduation dress, which they wore white dresses for graduation, and it's from about 1899, 1900, and it's original. It's one of the few 19th century stuff that we have here that pertains to Winthrop.
There are a few people that are still fixated on the plates. They think they're beautiful, and somebody just asked, how often are these plates made?
They started making these in the 1930s for the alumni, for a fundraiser, and I think the last iteration of them was probably in the 1960s. They haven't really done them, and I could be mistaken. They could have done them a couple of times since then, but I don't think they have been offered. But there's they are beautiful plates, and a number, like I said, you know, there are people who maybe have estate sales and somebody that they didn't really know that well, and would just put things up for sale, and you can find them in antique shops as well sometimes.
They are beautiful. Well, I know homecoming had to be virtual this year, but we couldn't let the event go by without celebrating our Golden Girls, the class of 1970. So let's see what we have over here. All right, this looks like a banner of some kind, Gina. Can you tell us about that?
This is the class blanket for the class of 1970. Every class would have a blanket that would say, have their year, and then each class chose a mascot. So this is Bulldogs are the class of 1970s mascot. And there's some other things on there. We'll have to get the class of 1970 to explain to us what all the different symbols are on their flag. And that the small one that Abby showed you is something that individual class members had. But they would use this if they had classes night, or if they had to represent their class in some way. They would always have this hanging up saying the class of 70 was there.
All right, well, I have on a little hat. Gina, can you tell me about this?
Yeah, that's the rat caps. They were used from the 50s to the fall of 1978 was the last time they used the rat caps, and for about a week the freshmen would have to wear the rat cap, and the upperclassmen would give them funny things to do, and then that's kind of like their initiation into the student body of Winthrop. And the rat caps had different, they mostly stayed the same design. Some of them had no little top knot on them. Some of them were slightly different wording or letters on it and things like that, but they mostly stayed the same most of the time that they had them. We have another photograph of
Someone wearing
that was in a freshman study in 1966 when they were a freshman sitting in the window.
Well, it sounds like as a member of the class of 83, you just missed out on wearing the rat caps, Gina.
Yes, I just did. We were the first class that did not wear it.
Okay, well, another one of my favorite items we have in the archives are our scrapbooks. Can you tell us about this one?
This one is a Roddy Hall scrapbook from 1970. There's probably some members of the class of 70 in it, but it was mostly just a Roddy Hall thing. We don't have a lot of memorabilia from the class of 70. So any of the class of 70 members out there, if you have some memorabilia you'd like to send us, get in touch with the alumni office, and they will get you in touch with us. We have photographs, we have the yearbook, a few other things, but here's another photograph. We do have some slides as well, which we weren't able to really reproduce. We have a booklet for songs and a sheet that has some songs that the class used. But if anybody, again, if anybody has anything they'd like to contribute for the class of 1970, please let us know.
We do have a question.
Okay.
There is a student that was of Winthrop in 83, and he noticed your James Dean background. He was wondering, was that from a longtime theater professor, Blair Beasley's office?
Yes.
Okay.
It was.
Very astute.
Yes, very good. That is from, we put him here, so we was hoping somebody would notice him. But they did come back to the Five and Dime, Jimmy Dean, and all the cast signed it on the back. So we have a lot of different things from Blair Beasley, and if those of you who were here in the 80s and the 90s, if you knew Blair Beasley, I had him. He was a great teacher. I learned a lot from him.
This viewer says that was his mentor as well.
Great.
Well, great. Well, we have another trophy. Let's see what this is. Is this another athletics trophy, Gina?
No, this is a trophy for the literary societies who contributed the best material to the Winthrop College Journal. Now, the Winthrop College Journal was a literary magazine early on. This goes from 14 to 19, I think, or 13 to 19. And the Winthrop College Journal started in 1902. It ended in the early 60s when it was renamed the Anthology. And the Anthology comes out once a year. The Winthrop College Journal came out monthly between October and April every year. And so we have a bunch of copies of those, but it had poems, it had essays, it had fiction stories, and a lot of different things. The Anthology has a little more artwork in it. This didn't have as much artwork in it. Later on, they did actually have artwork. And starting in 1919, we had the Winthrop President's Medal, which was given to an individual student that wrote the best story for the Winthrop College Journal.
All right, well, this looks like a photograph of front campus, and I've heard that almost every building at Winthrop once had a different name. Can you tell us a little bit about that, Gina?
Sure. Just to start off, the photograph of the building that's on the far left is Rutledge, what we know as Rutledge. It was Carnegie Library. And Carnegie Library, when Dacus Library was built, Carnegie Library was renamed Rutledge and became the art building. But it was built as a library. The next building over is McLaurin, which at this time, this is in 1920, would have been known as South Dormitory. It had the 3 triple porches on it, and as did Margaret Nance. Those fell into disrepair during the Depression, and they just didn't have the money to fix them, and they tore them off, and they've never been able to put them back. Then, of course, we have Main Building, as it was called then, the first building, built in 1895. The next building is Margaret Nance, which would be North, it was known as North. It also had triple porches, and again, fell into disrepair during the Depression. The far building on the far right is the Science Building. And it had an observatory on top that had a big telescope. You could turn the telescope had a mechanism that the whole dome would turn so you could position the telescope. And that building was torn down in 1962 after Sims Science Building was built. The building there is Bancroft, is the other building there. Now, it was originally known as Johnson Hall. And when they built the student building that became Johnson Hall, that we know now as the theater building, they wanted to name it after Johnson, so they called it Johnson Hall and renamed Bancroft for his middle name.
And I've heard a rumor about Fort Bancroft. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yes, I think we have some information over here about Fort Bancroft.
Okay, and yesterday was Veterans Day, so it looks like this whole table is dedicated to our veterans. Can you tell us about this?
The people you see in this photograph are cadets for Winthrop was the home of the 41st College Training Detachment of the Army Air Corps Cadets during World War II, 43 and 44. Cadets would come and live on campus for like 6 to 8 weeks, and they would take classes here that Winthrop professors taught them, and then they would learn to fly out at Roddy Field. They lived in Bancroft, which they renamed Fort Bancroft. So that's where the Fort Bancroft came from. And they were on campus it was a little bit of a controversy, thinking, the cadets coming on campus for women's school, but everything worked out fine. And in fact, some of the gentlemen who were cadets went on after the war to marry Winthrop students that they met while they were on campus.
All right, and what is this plaque right here, Gina?
This is a plaque for the SS David B. Johnson. It was a victory ship during World War II. They named this for D.B. Johnson. Victory ships were used for cargo, and then after the war they were used for troop transport. But there was also a SS Winthrop Victory, which was a victory ship as well. So there were 2 named for Winthrop people, D.B. Johnson and the Winthrop Victory.
And this looks like Mrs. Johnson. What is she doing in this photograph?
maybe need to get that a little closer, but this is Mrs. Johnson, and this was a painting done by Dwight Bell in 1981 from a photograph of Mrs. Johnson. What she's doing is she's christening the Victory ship, SS David B. Johnson, and we have a photograph of her doing that, and the person from 1981 painted this portrait using that photograph. Then we also down here have a bottle that they use. Of course, they christen ships with champagne. And this is not actually the one that Mrs. Johnson used, but it's one that would be similar. There was also an SS Rock Hill, and we have the bottle that was used to christen the SS Rock Hill. But they would be very much like the one Mrs. Johnson used to christen the SS David B. Johnson.
And Gina, I mentioned that yesterday was Veterans Day. Can you tell a little bit about our Veterans History Project that we do here in the archives?
Yes, we started the Veterans History Project back in 2004, and we interview veterans. It's with partnership with the Library of Congress Folk Life Center, and so we interview veterans. We have over 100 interviews with veterans, and we're always looking for people who are interested in doing those interviews. But a lot of those interviews can be listened to digital commons, like Brittany was talking about the interview with Mrs. D.B. Johnson. You can listen to some of those veterans interviews on our digital commons page, and just in the comfort of your own home. We have dozens and dozens and dozens of oral history interviews about all kinds of subjects, Winthrop history and Rock Hill history, with alumni, with faculty members, all sorts of things.
All right.
Wonderful. We do have a couple of questions.
Okay.
One is from a exhibit that your collection you did a couple of times ago. It was about the scrapbooks. Somebody is wondering if how you preserve those and if they are digitized, because they'd love to look at them.
We have, I don't think we've digitized a few scrapbooks that have a lot of photographs in them, but we find that scrapbooks are one of the most difficult things to preserve, because a lot of them, now you have acid-free paper and all sorts of things, but in the past, most scrapbooks were like construction paper, and they're just probably the worst kind of paper, so they fall apart readily. They also have, a scrapbook has many different types of things in it. You have photographs, you have letters, you have invitations, you have ice cream sticks, flowers, you have all kinds of things. In fact, we have one that was from the turn of this century, I think it was 1909 or so, where a Winthrop student put hand-rolled cigarettes, because cigarettes were not, you couldn't just buy cigarettes that were already made. You had to hand-roll them. So she had women couldn't smoke, were not allowed to smoke in public anyway, at this time. So she took these cigarettes, hand-rolled cigarettes, and put them on a page in a scrapbook, and she called them cancer sticks, which amazed me because I didn't know they were called that early on. But she also put the guy's name that she got the cigarette from. And she didn't smoke them, she just pasted them in the scrapbook. So, here you have something that's paper and tobacco, and so you've got organic material, you've got chemically different, that's photographs, so those are notoriously hard to preserve. But one day we want to raise enough money to get an overhead scanner so that we can scan these things, because you can't really put a scrapbook down on a flatbed scanner and get a good picture of it. So.
That totally makes sense. But could this viewer possibly come in and look at the scrapbooks in person?
Yes.
That'd be wonderful. So the second question is any idea what happened to the telescope from the original science building?
Actually, I had somebody a number of years ago try to find I don't think he works anymore, but the planetarium that they have at York County Museum. He tried to find out what happened to the telescope. We have all the specifications here, all the material relating to how they built it, what it was made out of, who built it, who manufactured it, everything. But it does not say what happened to it. Now at this time, and this was probably 20 or more years ago, there was still a lady who had taught in the science building at the time that was around in 1962 when they tore the building down. And so he went to a nursing home and interviewed her, and she had no idea what happened to it. he said that the main thing was the lens. The lens was the most important part of it. And he hopes that somebody didn't throw that away. But so far we haven't been able to find out what happened to it. So yeah, if anybody knows, let us know.
It's an archives mystery.
Yeah. Do you have any more questions, Abby?
That's where all caught up. Thank
All
you.
right. Well, I told you my favorite item a while ago, and it has appeared. So these are one of the Winthrop registers.
Oh, yeah, yeah. These are great. These are, you know, now we take having computers for granted, but these books have, and they're very heavy, and anybody can come and look at them if they want to, but they have the students' names, they have their address, they have their parent or guardian's name. So if their parent, they didn't live with their parent, or their parent had passed away and they had a guardian, it would list that guardian's name, it would list the guardian's address. It has, you know, where they lived, what day they came in. Sometimes it has their birthday. It will have what their religious affiliation is, so you can tell whether they're Presbyterian, Baptist, Methodist, whatever. And what age they were when they entered that year, and what their course of study was. So you can kind of see, find where somebody has progressed. Now, one thing we find this helpful with is that when somebody says, well, my great-grandmother went to school here, but she didn't graduate. So we can look at this and see how many semesters she attended and when she left. And sometimes they're in the remarks column over here, it will say why a person left. So there's a lot of really good information from these books.
All right, looks like we have a diploma here.
That is a Winthrop Training School diploma, which is what Winthrop was called in the first years of its existence, and that was from the very first class. We have a few of them. They're a lot bigger than what diplomas are now, but we have several of the first classes diplomas and several other diplomas from different years, and you can kind of see how they change over the years.
Yeah, I just realized we didn't mention our pennants. Can you tell us about these?
These pennants back here are a little bit more recent than the ones we saw earlier. This one's from the 1950s, I think, because you still see it has the Winthrop College, South Carolina College for women, and the South Carolina thing here, and then when you see this one over here, but this one is from the 1940s. So yeah, we have a lot of different pennants. You have a question?
Awesome. We do have a couple of questions. What is the oldest register that the archives has? And what is the most recent one? When did they stop?
The oldest one is covers 1895 to 1912. We don't have any registers from when Winthrop was in Columbia. It just starts from when we moved to Rock Hill. The latest one is from 1950. And I think after that, after 1950, they decided they had a different way of doing things. I'm not sure when the computer started, but they had a different way of putting the information into something. So the handwritten registers don't go beyond 1950.
Sure. Do you have any more questions, Abby?
We are all caught up.
All right. Well, next we have a table full of things that I work with on a daily basis, the Tatler yearbook.
Yeah, and
Some photographs.
Let's see what we have here. We have the class. This is in Columbia, 1891. You see D.B. Johnson there. You see the students before uniforms, so they would just wear their regular clothes there. So that's one of our older photographs from the time before Rock Hill. We have
Tatler's
yearbooks. That's the second one. The oldest yearbook, the Tatler, was from 1898. And we do have a copy of that over here. So we have Tatler's going from 1898 to the last one was done in 2002. Winthrop no longer prints a yearbook. There's a few years we don't have, they just didn't do a yearbook, and we're not really sure why. I think it's 1902, 1903, 5, and 6. That there is no, and there's not one for 1900. So they just didn't print one then, but we have yearbooks from all the other times. They all have pictures. Most of them have pictures, and the early ones don't have as many photographs as the later ones, but they're a great resource. As Brittany says, we use these nearly every day. So I really hope that the student body will decide to start doing another yearbook. I think that would really help us out.
Looks like here we have a picture of Withers or Winthrop Training School.
Yes. This is probably the earliest picture of the completed building. It was completed of 1912, 1913. They actually moved into it in 1913. This was right after it was built. It was built as the model school. Winthrop had the training school, had kindergarten through high school, and Winthrop students would, some of them would do practice teaching, but it was the school was Winthrop professors and people in the community. They didn't have a bus, so if you couldn't get to Winthrop Training School, you couldn't go to school there. You had to be able to get there, or walk. I guess would be within walking distance. But that building was modeled after D.B. Johnson decided to go to Europe to find out educational processes and educational theories over there, and he saw a number of buildings in England that inspired him to have Winthrop Training School built in that style.
All right, what is this, Jen?
This is a print. Can you see that? It's from about 1913. It was when the campus was being redesigned. You can see Winthrop Training School there. So it was when that was being built. The building where we know Joins is, they had planned for Joins, but Joins doesn't look anything like that. So they changed that later. But you can see Peabody, which was planned, but at this time it wasn't built. The President's House is a very interesting looking thing on this print. It was the President's House used to be a Queen Anne style house, and then they decided to modernize it in 1913, and so they took all the turrets and anything that made it Queen Anne style and made it what it looks like today, but they also moved it back 50 feet from the street. And all that took place in 1913. The story that I had heard, and I've not been able to corroborate this, I haven't found any proof that this happened. They said that the guy who made the sketch went up in a balloon to make the sketch of it for the etching, and I'm sure that would have probably been in a newspaper or something. So I'm thinking this is just a rumor that went around, but I've heard from numerous sources that again, it was something that we could not corroborate with documentation.
All right. Well, did we have any more questions, Abby? Or
Is this print scanned, and can it be purchased if there's a copy of it?
No, it's not. I've seen prints of it. In fact, Louise Pettis, that the archives was named after, she was in New York City once a number of years ago, and she said she happened to come across a copy of this print, and she said she would have bought it, but they wanted $125 for it, and she didn't want to pay that for it. But I think that you can find print. They did this one from 1913, but they did do one later on that was hand colored. So it's like a colored print of it. They also used the print for postcards for various things. So there was a postcard that was used for this. Make it even closer. That we have a few copies of that. But so it's been used for over a number of years for various things. But I think, again, if anybody wanted a copy of it, they'd probably have to look in an antique store or something like that.
We are all caught up with questions.
all right. Well, we want to thank everyone for joining us, and I don't know if Gina wanted to take a second to thank our behind-the-scenes crew.
Yeah, then our camera person is Caitlin Burdett. She's class of 2008. Winthrop. And then you met Abby. Abby's a current graduate student. She's going to get her master's in December, just next month. But she's also undergraduate graduate in 2018. And our setup people were Andrew Johnston, who's the assistant director of archives, and he's class of 2001 and 2008 here at Winthrop. And Carson Cope, he got his bachelor's degree from Winthrop in 2015 and his master's in 2017, and he's currently a student in library science at University of South Carolina, and he's supposed to graduate next month as well. So yeah.
We had one final question that just popped in. It's actually a really, really good one. Why is the Louis Pettis Archives named Louis Pettis Archives?
Well, Louise Pettis was a longtime history and education professor here at Winthrop.
And a graduate.
And a graduate. She graduated from Winthrop in 1946, and she's an absolutely wonderful person. She used the archives many, many times over doing her research. She's an excellent researcher, an excellent local historian, and a fantastic teacher. And we named the archives after her. She gave us a great legacy and so a monetary legacy as well. And we named the archives after her in 2006. So, and she's a wonderful lady. She lives over at Westminster Tower. She's 94 years old.
Well, we want to thank you all, and we want to once again say congratulations to our Golden Girls, the class of 1970.
And please contact us if you have any questions, or if there's some Winthrop memorabilia that you have in your attic or your basement or your garage and you'd like to see it have a good home.
All right, thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
All right, I took us offline.